Hi, my name is Jessley, and I'm going to talk about Edward the Confessor. Edward the Confessor was born between 1002 and 1005 in Islip near Oxford, England. He was the son of King Alfred and Queen Emma from Normandy, which is northern France. King Alfred was also known as Alfred the Unready. Due to Danish invasions, the family was exiled to Normandy and stayed there until 1041. King Canute was ruling while they were in exile and died in 1035. After his death, both of his sons took the throne but died soon after. His son Harold took the throne from 1035 to 1040. And then, after Harold, Arthur Canute took the throne from 1040 to 1042. Also, after King Canute's death, Edward and Alfred came back to take over the throne but failed. Also, Alfred was murdered by a man named Godwin. During Arthur Canute's reign, he reckoned Edward back from exile. After Arthur Canute's sudden death, Edward was chosen to be king without opposition and was crowned at Winchester on April 3, 1043. After Edward's first attempt to retrieve the throne, he vowed that if he was able to get the throne, he would pilgrimage to Rome. Edward wanted to do this as a sign of gratitude to God. King Edward's reign was peaceful and prosperous. Fights against the Scottish and the Welsh were only occasional, unlike during the reign of his father. The financial and judicial systems were efficient and trade was good. However, there was resentment in the court by Mercia and Wessex. Some historians saw his reign as weak and saw him as a fickle individual who paved the way for the Norman conquest. Other historians stress his tenacity and cunning, which enabled, in a situation of near isolation, to preserve peace for over 20 years, while the Danish and Norman magnates struggled for power. Godwin was one of King Edward's advisors, and in the year 1045, Edward married his daughter Edith despite the conflict they had and the fact that he had murdered his brother. 2 years later, Edward had outlawed Godwin and his family because of some French followers of Eustace of Boulogne were involved in a quarrel with the inhabitants of Dover, which is located in England. King Edward had instructed him to punish the town, but Godwin refused, and because of that he was exiled with his family, and Queen Edith was sent to a nunnery. Later in the year 1053, Godwin died. Only a year after, he had come back with his sons in preparation for a civil war. However, the magnates of England were not prepared for a civil war, so King Edward was forced to make terms with Godwin. King Edward was a devoted Catholic, and it has been said that he is a great man of prayer. He was given the title Edward the Confessor. A confessor is a saint who suffers for his faith but is one step short of martyrdom. He lived off of his own income and his own lands and reached out to the poor. He was believed to have the power to heal. This began the royal custom for nearly 700 years until Queen Anne. This began the belief that all royalty had the power to heal. King Edward was so devoted to the Catholic Church that he had promised to be celibate even after his marriage, and that's why his bloodline did not continue after his death. King Edward even followed Catholic obligations to give 1/10 of his income to the church. As I mentioned before, King Edward vowed to pilgrimage to Rome because he was able to take back the thrones from King Canute. but he was not able to leave because of his people. So the Pope let him go of his vow just as long as he founded a monastery and dedicated it to St. Peter. Therefore, he funded and built the Westminster Abbey. Unfortunately, he was not able to live to see it finished. Legend has it that when King Edward was riding to Westminster Abbey, a beggar was begging for alms. Even though King Edward wanted to give him money, he didn't have any. Therefore, he had given him his ring. A few years later, some pilgrims were lost, and the same beggar claimed that he was St. John the Evangelist and told them to give King Edward back his ring and to tell him that in 6 months he would meet him in heaven. King Edward died on January 5th, 1066. It has been said that Harold, son of Godwin, was named as his successor, but there was a conflict because William of Normandy claimed he was the rightful heir to the throne because they were blood. In the end, William became coronated and he became William the Conqueror. King Edward now rests in Westminster Abbey, where they have created a shrine for him.